The calm after the storm was fragile, though the iron flames had been crushed. Whispers of rebellion still floated through the city. Old fears died slowly. Queen Arathel stood on her balcony, staring into the dark space beyond Zeller's atmosphere. The stars were countless and cold. So many unknown dangers hid in the shadows. Beside her, Captain Elias Drake adjusted his jacket. His arms still wrapped in bandages, but his spirit unbroken. "We've done well," Elias said softly. "We have." Arathel agreed. "But I fear the real battle is still ahead." That battle came faster than either expected. A fleet of warships, larger and more powerful than any Zelari vessel, appeared suddenly at the edge of the system. The enemy was unknown, neither human nor Zelari, and their weapons were advanced, their tactics brutal. The war had never truly ended. The palace erupted into chaos. "Prepare the defenses," Arathel ordered. Elias suited up, his eyes calm but fierce. "We fight for everything we've built," he said. Arathel nodded. Together, the battle was fierce and brutal. Energy blasts lit the skies. Ships exploded in flames. On the ground, the city shook from distant impacts. Elias led the counterattack squads, coordinating humans and Zelari with steady commands. Arathel directed the defense from the palace, her voice strong despite exhaustion. During a crucial moment, an enemy ship broke through defenses and aimed straight for the palace. "Elias, it's coming right at us," a guard shouted. Elias didn't hesitate. He ran to the launch bay and jumped into a fighter ship. With skill and daring, he raced toward the enemy vessel. The two ships clashed in space. Weaving through laser fire and explosions, Elias fired carefully, aiming for the ship's engines. With a final blast, the enemy vessel exploded, sending shockwaves through space. He survived, but barely. Back on the palace grounds, Arathel received word of Elisa's victory. A wave of relief washed over her. But then worry returned. He was badly hurt. Elias returned to the palace, his ship barely landing before he collapsed. Doctors rushed to him. Arathel stayed by his side, holding his hand. "You shouldn't have risked yourself," she whispered. He smiled weakly. "I couldn't let them hurt you." Her eyes softened. "You're not just a soldier, Elias." "No," he said. "I'm someone who believes in you." Days passed as Elias healed. Arathel stayed close, often sitting quietly beside him. Night, she finally spoke. "I was wrong about humans, about you." He opened his eyes slowly. "It's never too late to change," she smiled. "She taught me that." He reached out, taking her hand gently. The city celebrated their victory. Zelari and humans stood together, united. Arathel addressed the crowd. "Today we face a new future, one built on trust, strength, and hope." She looked at Elias and, "I owe much of this future to a human who refused to leave me alone." The crowd cheered loudly. Later, in a quiet moment, Arathel and Elias stood together beneath the stars. She looked at him, her voice soft but clear. "You saved my life more times than I can count." He smiled. "And you saved mine." She took a deep breath. "Will you stay with me? Not as a soldier, but as something more." Elias's eyes shone. "I never wanted to leave." They stood close, hands joined, ready to face whatever the future held. The days after the attack were tense but hopeful. Queen Arathel's speech had calmed many fears. People began to rebuild with renewed energy. But beneath the surface, danger still lurked. Arathel knew this. The iron flames had not vanished. They were wounded, angry, and desperate. She sat in her private chamber, eyes fixed on the star-filled sky beyond her window. Beside her stood Captain Elias Drake, his arm still healing, but his spirit unbroken. "You don't have to do this alone," Elias said softly. Arathel turned, her golden eyes fierce. "I don't want to do it alone." Elias smiled faintly. "Then let me stand with you." The royal council was a storm of voices that day. "Your Majesty," Lord Kale began, "naming a human as your advisor offends tradition." "Tradition is what nearly destroyed us," Arathel replied sharply. another minister whispered. The people are unsettled by the presence of humans in our government. Arathel raised her hand for silence. The people are unsettled because they see a future that is uncertain. But uncertainty is better than destruction. She looked at Elias, and this human has proven his loyalty to Zelari. The room fell. Quiet. Later, Elias and Arathel walked through the palace gardens. The city lights twinkled below like scattered stars. Do you regret it? Elias asked quietly, choosing you? Bringing humans into my council? She hesitated. Sometimes. I was raised to believe humans were enemies, to hate them. And now I see their strength, their hope. I wonder if I ever truly understood my own people. Elias nodded. Sometimes change is the hardest fight. She looked at him, and sometimes it's the only fight worth fighting. The iron flames were growing bolder. Reports came of sabotage in food supplies, attacks on communication lines, and whispered threats in the night. Arathel called an emergency meeting. We must stop them before they destroy everything, said firmly. Elias proposed a plan. We set a trap, he said. We pretend to retreat from the city's outer walls, lure them in, then cut off their escape. The council murmured, some skeptical. Arathel raised her hand. We will try it. Days later, the plan was in motion. The iron flames took the bait. They stormed the empty walls, expecting an easy victory. Instead, they found themselves surrounded. Elias led the strike teams with fierce determination. Arathel commanded the palace. Defense with cold precision. The battle was fierce but quick. The iron flames were defeated. Their leaders captured. After the victory, Arathel addressed her people again. This battle was not just for land or power, she said, voice steady. It was for our future. It's for peace, for all of us. She looked at Elias, standing beside her, and, it is a future we will build together, the crowd cheered. That night, Elias visited Arathel in her chambers. She was alone, staring at the stars. You saved us, she said softly. We saved each other, he replied. She smiled, rare, genuine. Smile. Thank you, Elias. He bowed his head. Always, Your Majesty.
Ow.
The days that followed brought more cooperation. Humans and Zelari rebuilt their cities side by side. Arathel walked among her people openly. No longer distant or cold, Elia stayed by her side, a steady presence, and the bond between the queen and the human captain deepened. But despite their victories, a question remained in Arathel's mind. Could she truly trust a human? Could she truly open her heart? She didn't have to wait long. One evening, during a quiet moment in the palace garden, Elias spoke. Why do you push me away, even as you keep me near? Arathel looked at him, eyes soft but conflicted. I was raised to be strong, to rule without weakness. Letting someone in isn't weakness. Maybe, but it's terrifying. He reached out and took her hand gently, sometimes the greatest. Strength is in trusting someone else. She didn't pull away. For the first time, Arathel let herself be vulnerable. That night, as the stars shone above, the queen whispered, Maybe. I don't want you to leave me alone anymore. Elias smiled softly. Neither do I. The capital of Zelarth had begun to change. Lights returned to the streets. Food stations opened in every sector. Children laughed again. Humans and Zelari worked side, building, cleaning, healing, and in the center of it all stood two unlikely leaders. Queen Arathel, proud and once cold. Captain Elias Drake, stubborn and honest. They still clashed in meetings. Argued over plans, but something had shifted. The queen no longer demanded that he leave. Elias no longer fought her every word. They were learning to trust each other, but not everyone. Wanted peace, far below the palace, in the shadowed underground ruins of old Zelarth. A secret group gathered in the dark. The Iron Flames, Zelari. Extremist faction, they believed peace with humans was a betrayal. They believed Queen Arathel had grown soft, poisoned by human lies. Their leader, a scarred warrior named Vakar, slammed his fist on the stone table. The queen bows to a human dog, he growled. She walks in the streets like a beggar. Lets the enemy poison our soil. Others nodded. We were warriors once. One shouted, We still are, Vacker said coldly. And now we take back our pride. We strike from the shadows. We remind her who she truly is. They began to plan. The next day, Elias and Arethel visited a power station in District 7. It had just started running again after a year of silence. Engineers greeted them with pride. This place lights up over 10 sectors now, said Siri, smiling brightly. Elias looked at Arethel. Credit goes to your staff. You gave them what they needed. The queen didn't smile, but she nodded. And your humans built the backup cores. It was joint effort. As they walked back toward the palace, something exploded behind them. Boom. Ground shook. A wave of heat and dust slammed into them. Elias grabbed Arethel and pulled her behind a wall as debris rained down. Screams echoed through the district. Guards rushed in. Fires lit up the sky. Get her out of here, shouted one commander. But Arethel refused to leave. I want to see who did this. Elias stood beside her, checking his burned arm. That wasn't a random accident. No, she agreed. That was a message. Back in the palace, tension filled the air. Arethel's advisors demanded tighter security, more guards, and complete removal of human aid workers. Arethel silenced them. No, she said. We will not return to fear. That's what they want. But your life is in danger, Lord Kale shouted. I know, she said. And I will face it. Elias leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. Who are they? Kale frowned. A group we thought was gone. The Iron Flames. Arethel added. Old loyalists from the war. They hated surrender, hated peace, and now they hate me. Elias stepped forward. Then let me help you stop them. Arethel looked at him. You're not a soldier here. I'm still trained. He said calmly, and I'm not going to let someone kill you just because you chose peace. She stared at him for a long time, then nodded once. That night, Elias sat alone outside the palace walls, watching the stars. Sari joined him, her face pale. I lost a friend today in the blast, she said quietly. I'm sorry, Elias replied. She looked at him. Do you think the queen is doing the right thing? I think she's trying, Elias said. That matters, but people are scared. So is she, he said. She just hides it better than most. Meanwhile, Arethel stood at her. Mira, removing her royal crown. Her reflection stared, back-tired, angry, unsure. She thought about Elias, his steady voice, his stupid grin. His bravery? She didn't want to admit it, but without him, she might have given in to fear. The next day, the queen and Elias met in her war room. Maps covered the walls. Reports of bombings, sabotage, and threats spread across the table. We can't wait, Elias said. They'll strike again. We don't know where, Arethel said. Elias tapped the map. Yes, we do. Look at the pattern. They hit sectors with human presence, with peace efforts. But always avoid the center. He traced a line. There. Circling the palace, Arethel's eyes narrowed. They want me. They're building toward one final attack. Elias nodded, and let's draw them out. They set the trap in District 9, a newly rebuilt square, filled with food centers, solar panels, and public gardens. The queen announced she would visit in person. Elias dressed in plain armor, and stood quietly beside her as she gave a speech to the crowd. The moment she finished, the attack began. Gunfire, explosives, chaos. Iron Flames fighters rushed from rooftops and hidden tunnels. Elias shoved Arethel down and took cover. Guards, hold the line! He yelled. Arethel drew her weapon and fired back, graceful and deadly. But the attackers kept coming. One aimed directly at the queen. Elias saw it too late. Bang. A blast hit him square in the chest. He crashed to the ground. Elias. The queen. Shouted. Blood spread across his shirt, but he still raised his arm and fired back, protecting her even while downed guards finally pushed the attackers back. Explosions faded. Dulled. Smoke cleared. The iron flames retreated, wounded, scattered. The queen rushed to Elias. "Don't move," she said, her voice shaking. He smiled weakly. "Told you I'm stubborn? You're bleeding. I've had worse," he whispered, then passed out. Elias woke 2 days later in a palace medical room. Arathel sat beside him, silent. When he opened his eyes, she looked away quickly. "You're alive," she said. "Thanks to you," he whispered. She didn't respond for a moment. Then quietly she said, "You protected me again." "I always will." She finally met his eyes. "I don't know why I yelled at you. I just ... I didn't want you close. I know. Thought it would make me weak. It made you stronger." Silence. Then she said, "I was afraid you'd leave." "Like everyone else?" "I'm not everyone else." She stood. "You're still injured. I'll recover." She nodded, then turned. Before leaving, she paused. "Rest well, Captain." He smiled. "Yes, Your Majesty." But this time her voice was soft, not angry, almost warm. The queen later addressed her people. "We were attacked," she said, standing before a crowd of thousands. "Not by humans, not by outsiders, but by our own fear, our own hate." She looked out over the crowd. "We will not go back. We will not kneel to the past. We will stand together with those who believe in a better future, even if they are human." The people roared with applause, and deep inside the palace, Elias smiled from his bed. The sun rose over Xylarth, casting pale golden light over the broken towers and dusty streets. Queen Arathel stood on her balcony, arms crossed, eyes locked on the city below. It was the same view she had every morning, but now it felt different. In every corner of the city, there were signs of the human's presence. Captain Elias Drake. He had no title, no soldiers, no power. But he had something more dangerous. The people were starting to trust him. Outside the palace, Elias was already working. He helped rebuild an old communication tower near the market. The Zellery engineers there worked faster with him around. His jokes were bad, his hands always dirty, and his smile too confident, but somehow he made things easier. "You humans are strange," one Zellery worker said. Elias laughed. "We get that a lot." Sari, the young engineer who often worked near Elias, handed him a tool. "Where does you even argued with the queen?" Elias said, tightening a bolt. "Didn't go great. You're brave." "I'm stupid," he corrected with a grin. "But maybe it helps sometimes." Inside the palace, Queen Arathel watched all this through a screen. Her jaw tightened every time she saw Elias smile. Her advisor, Lord Kale, stood nearby, frowning as well. "This human is getting too close to the people." "I know," she said. "He makes you look weak." That struck a nerve. Arathel turned sharply. "I am not weak." "Then why haven't you sent him away?" Her eyes flashed. "Sending him away would prove I'm afraid of him." Kale paused, then bowed. "Of course, my queen." But even he could see the truth. She was afraid, not of Elias himself, but of what she felt when she saw him helping her people. Strange warmth. A crack in her pride. That evening, Arathel made a decision. She would face him again. Elias was resting near a fire outside the workers' quarters when a palace guard arrived. "The queen demands your presence," he sighed. "Of course she does." This time, the throne room was darker. Only a few torches burned. The usual guards were gone. It was just Elias and the queen. She didn't greet him. She didn't even rise from her throne. "You're making my people forget who I am," she said. Elias blinked. "I didn't realize helping rebuild water pumps was such a threat." Her voice sharpened. "Don't play games, human. I'm not. I'm just doing what needs to be done." "They don't need you, don't they?" Elias took a step forward. "You sit here in silence while your people starve, while buildings collapse, while children dig through rubble. I didn't come here to take anything. I came because someone had to do something." Rathel stood up quickly, her voice rising. "It's not your place. Then whose place is it?" "Yours." Elias stepped closer, his voice steady. "Then why aren't you out there?" The queen froze. Elias didn't stop. "You lead through fear, But the people need hope. They don't need a perfect queen. They need someone who cares. There was silence. Then, without warning, Rathel walked down the steps of her throne and stopped inches from him. "You speak like you know my world." "No," Elias said softly, "but I know people. I've seen what war does. I've seen what silence does. And I know you care. You're just scared to show it." Her fists clenched. Then she shouted, "Why don't you leave me alone, human?" Words echoed through the empty chamber. Elias didn't flinch. He met her eyes and said, "Because I'm not here for you. I'm here for them. But if helping them means challenging you, I'll do it again." She stared at him for a long time. Finally, she whispered, "Get out." Elias nodded once and left without another word. That night, rain fell over Zalarth for the first time in weeks. It washed the dust from the streets and cooled the air. Arathel stood alone in her garden, letting the rain fall on her face. She remembered Elias's words, the look in his eyes. He wasn't like the others. He didn't want power, didn't even want her approval. He just wanted her people to live. She hated that it made sense. The next morning, she made another choice. This time, she left the palace. The guards were shocked. The advisors whispered in panic, but Arathel ignored them all. She put on a cloak and stepped into the streets, alone except for 2 silent guards. For the first time in years, she walked through her sight not on a screen, not in reports, but with her own feet. She saw the broken homes, the tired workers, the children with thin arms. She passed places Elias had already helped clean streets, new walls, working lights. People greeted each other with calm voices and tired smiles, and then she saw him, covered in dirt. Lifting a heavy beam with 2 Zalari workers, he failed to carry it alone. "Why are you even helping us?" Elias smiled. "Because when people fall, you help them up. That's what being human means to me." Queen Arathel stood there, watching, and something inside her shifted. Later, she returned to the palace. She didn't speak to anyone, but that night she sent a message to Elias. The next day, Elias was summoned again, but this time, not to be. Scolded, Queen Arathel sat with him in a council chamber with her ministers and engineers. The topic? Rebuilding plans. Food deliveries. Power grids. And she asked him to advise. Everyone in the room froze. Even Elias blinked. "You're serious?" The Queen looked at him directly. "I don't like you, Captain, but I can't deny your work," he smiled. "That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me." She frowned. "Don't make me change my mind," but Elias only nodded. "Let's get to work then." And from that day forward, things began to change. Not quickly, not perfectly, but slowly. The humans and Zelari started rebuilding, dashed together, and the Queen, once cold and distant, now watched with sharper eyes, listened more, and began to walk among her people again. Elias didn't stop working. He didn't seek praise. He stayed patient, steady, because he knew something important. Real peace doesn't come from treaties. It comes from effort, from stubborn kindness, from refusing to give up. And no matter how many times the Queen yelled at him, he wasn't going anywhere. The war between humans and the Zelari Empire had ended just 6 months ago. The galaxy was still healing. Many cities on both sides were broken. Millions were dead. Trust was gone, but peace had to start somewhere. Captain Elias Drake stood at the base of the tall silver palace in the capital city of Zalarth. The sky was purple, the wind dry, and the guards beside him wore sharp armor made of crystal and steel. They watched him like he was a dangerous animal. Elias adjusted his black coat and stared at the great doors in front of him. "Time to meet the Queen," he muttered. The doors opened slowly. Inside was a long hall with glowing blue lights, carved pillars, and floating banners showing the symbol of the Zalera 3 rings wrapped around a star. At the far end, seated on a tall throne, was Queen Arathel of Zelari. She was young, maybe not even 30 in human years, but her presence was cold and proud. Her skin shimmered like moonlight, her hair was silver, and her long robes flowed like liquid metal. Her eyes sharp, glowing gold locked onto Elias the moment he entered. He walked forward, calm and steady. The room was silent, as he reached the marked line on the floor. The Zalari guards expected him to kneel. He didn't. He stood tall. The queen narrowed her eyes. "Human," she said, her voice clear and commanding. "You stand in the royal court of Zilarth. You will kneel before your queen." Elias took a deep breath. His voice was steady. "With respect, your majesty, I don't kneel to anyone, not even my own leaders. I'm here as an equal, not a subject." Gasps filled the hall. The guards tightened their grips. A few moved their hands to their weapons. But Queen Arathel raised one hand. The room fell silent again. "Bold," she said coldly. "Or foolish." Elias didn't blink. "I came here to help, not to play games. If you want to throw me out, go ahead. But if you want peace, you'll have to talk to me." For a moment, the queen said nothing. Then slowly she stood up and walked down the steps of her throne. Her steps were silent. She stopped just a few feet from Elias and looked him over like a scientist studying a strange animal. "You are not what I expected," she said. "I get that a lot," Elias replied. She turned away. "You will stay in the East Wing. Speak to my advisor if you need anything. You'll be summoned again if I decide you're useful." Elias gave a small nod and left. The next day, Elias walked through the outer city ruins. Buildings were broken, power lines down, food lines long. The Zalari people tall, graceful, once proud now looked tired and lost. Elias didn't come with an army or even soldiers. He came with engineers, medics, and supplies. His goal wasn't politics. He wanted to help. So he rolled up his sleeves and got to work. When water pumps failed in one district, he fixed them. When a school needed rebuilding, he helped carry bricks. When children cried from hunger, he shared food. Some Zalari watched in silence. Others spit near his feet. But many began to nod slowly, accept his presence, or at least stop fearing him. The queen heard about it. She was not pleased. 3 days later, Queen Arathel stood in her private garden staring at a small holoscreen. It showed Elias helping lift a broken beam off a trapped Zalari worker. The humans in Zalari on site were cheering her advisor. Lord Kale stepped forward. "He's gaining favor with the people, my queen." "I see that he's dangerous." Arathel's eyes narrowed. "Annoying." Lord Kale said nothing. The queen clenched her jaw. "Why is he doing this? Perhaps he truly means it." "Nonsense. Humans don't help without a reason." Still, that night Arathel couldn't sleep. The next morning, Elias was back in the ruins, helping clear rubble from a collapsed tower. A group of young Zalari engineers worked beside him. One of them, a girl named Sari, smiled. "You don't act like other humans?" Elias grinned. "I'm one of a kind," she laughed. "You don't even wear armor. I'm not here to fight." "Why are you here?" He paused. "'Cause we've done enough damage. Somebody has to help fix it." That afternoon, a messenger arrived. The queen demanded his presence. This time, Elias was led not to the throne room, but to her private meeting hall. A place with tall windows, moonlight trees, and quiet silence. She stood by the window, looking out at her city. "You don't stop," she said without turning. "You move through my city like you own it." Elias folded his arms. "I thought you wanted peace." "I want peace," she said sharply. "But not at the cost of pride." Elias shrugged. "Then maybe it's not peace you want." She turned. "Angry now. Why don't you leave me alone, human?" Elias met her gaze. "Because your people need help. And I'm not going to sit in a palace while they suffer." "Then help from the shadows. Stop making them love you." He frowned. "I don't want them to love me. I want them to live." For a moment, the queen didn't speak. "You speak like a hero, I'm not. You act like one." Elias stepped closer. "And you act like someone afraid to admit humans can do good." Her eyes flashed with fury, but not only fury. There was doubt too, and conflict. She turned away. "You may stay. But watch yourself, Captain Drake." "I always do," he said, then walked out. That night, Arathel sat alone in her chamber. She stared at a screen showing a simple photo. Elias laughing with Zalari children as they painted a wall. She whispered to herself, "Why can't I just hate him?" She had no answer.